Hello and welcome to another episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. Well, cinemas are back fully open, so we thought it was time to go back and take a look at the films that are coming out in cinemas at the moment. And we're starting with a film that opened in cinemas yesterday. It's called Clifford the Big Red Dog, and it's one of the big family films to have come out during this holiday period. But I should start by introducing us both. I am Dave G, and joining me is my co-host,
Lee G.
And like I said, we are looking at Clifford, one of the big family films to have surfaced this holiday period. It's directed by Walt Becker, and it stars Darby Camp as Emily, a young girl who is left to be looked after by her, I don't know what you would call him, childish Uncle Casey, played by Jack Whitehall. And in doing so, the pair meet Bridwell, a kind of magical man played by John Cleese. And I'll talk a little bit later on about an internet rumour that is going on about this character, Bridwell. Now, Bridwell gives to Emily a small dog. And I say small to start with because Clifford grows very, very big very, very quickly. Now, of course, that is a problem in itself, but soon she also finds a villain who wants her dog, claiming that it's part of one of his scientific experiments, and suddenly Emily and Casey find themselves wanted and having to turn to her friend Owen, played by Isaac Wang, for help to try and escape. So I've got to ask, what were your initial thoughts on Clifford? Because I have to say, this was a film that I was wondering what it was going to be like when I headed into it, and found out that I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you go in wondering as an adult, are you going to like it as a kid's movie? You've got, of course, the CGI mixed with real actors, and so you're always wondering, is that going to work? It did work, and I was glad to say that as an adult it was entertaining as well as for children. And so if you go as a family, adults shouldn't be bored with it. There's a lot in it that will keep you intrigued, and also just to see the fun. It is definitely a kids movie, it's not an adults movie, but there's enough in it for adults to remain entertained. I think there were some great themes in the movie. I think that, there was themes from kids being unaccepting in the school to people being unaccepting in the community of both people and the dog. There were themes about family, love, acceptance and friendship. And there was also the theme of, scientists or people in companies who will put something amazing over someone's life, I guess. The value of a product or something that they can invest in over the value of love and life. So there was a lot in this film, I feel, and it was quite captivating. What did you think?
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky recently with these, I call them half animation, half human films for families. Of course, we had Sonic the Hedgehog, which I think went above and beyond anyone's expectations of what they thought the film was going to be like. There was Tom and Jerry, of course, earlier this year as well, which was really, really loved by both fans of the old Tom and Jerry and also, of course, the new fans. And I think one of the reasons why Clifford works so well is because of the director, Walt Becker. He's kind of had a really interesting career in that he's worked on films for kids, including Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip, but he's also done adult comedy with a Van Wilder film, Wild Hogs, which of course a lot of people class as a classic comedy film, and he did Zookeeper as well with Kevin James. So he's kind of got the right knowledge of what both adults and children like, and I think here he's been able to bring that together wonderfully well. I think he did it with his Chipmunk movie as well, but once again he's been able to bring in all different forms of comedy. We saw this at a screening that had a lot of children and a lot of adults there, and people were laughing at different things. I think a lot of audience members kind of relate to where Casey finds himself, where he's kind of at that age where it's time for him to grow up and become a man, but at the same time he hasn't. Now he finds himself out of depth because he's left to look after a child, but there's also still a lot of slapstick in there that the kids found really funny, like Casey getting knocked over by Clifford. Of course, the scene that we've all seen in the trailer where Clifford decides to cock his leg on a tree, and it goes all over the cast. And they're the kinds of things that kids love, and kids were hooting with laughter in the cinema that we were in, whereas the adults go more for the kind of situations that Casey finds himself in as an adult. And like you said, there's a really important moral in this film as well, not only because of the way that Emily is treated by the other kids at the school, but there's also a very big moral around the company that wants Clifford, and that is that they're a company that's doing experiments on animals. And I think Tony Hale plays that villain quite well throughout this film as well. I think it's pretty well done, and this ends up being a really good, well-rounded film. What did you think of the performances of the cast in this film?
I thought the actress Darby Camp that played Emily was the perfect fit, really. She did really well in her role, and I guess at a young age to be working with animation as well as real life people, she's done an amazing job. I think that would actually be quite hard. I did like the character of Casey, as you've already mentioned. He's known for comedy as well, and I think that it's not overly funny, but it's very amusing in parts, and he pulls that off really well with his character. The boy who played the character of Owen, who is Isaac Wang, I thought he was a great little character and a good friend to Emily, and just wanting to be a great support to her. And I guess he was also trying to figure out what do you do with this massive big dog and how do you protect it, and all the logistics around keeping a pet, but a huge pet, and how to keep it safe. I think he played that part really well. John Cleese, always a favourite of mine. I actually got very excited when I realised that he was in it, and his character Bridwell. I really loved, I guess, the magic around how his character is introduced, and he starts off in an animal rescue tent, and while it's about rescuing an animal, at the same time I feel like he was rescuing a family as well and putting more love in their life. I think that his intent was to match up a family with a beautiful animal, and to bring even more love into their life than what they already had. One of the lines that is used is magic all around us, sometimes the magic finds us, and it just brings that bit of intrigue into the movie as well. His role isn't huge, he's not in it through the whole movie, but when he is in it, he brings something special. The character of the mother, which is Maggie, she wasn't in it a whole lot, and so I didn't feel like we could connect with her as much as the other characters. It's not that she didn't have a good performance, it's just that she wasn't in it so much. So they're probably my highlights of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, now I wanted to talk a little bit about this interesting fan theory that's been generating about the character of Bridwell. Now, Bridwell is not a character that's been seen in the Clifford universe before, and he's been named after the person who created the books, Norman Bridwell. But this is a little interesting fan theory about Bridwell. Now, Bridwell in this film has a tent, which is small on the outside and large on the inside. Now, a lot of people are speculating that perhaps Bridwell is a Time Lord, the same as Doctor Who. Doctor Who, of course, has the same thing with his TARDIS, where it's smaller on the outside, bigger on the inside. And the reason why people are coming up with this theory is because Uncle Casey asks the question, is it me or is this tent bigger on the inside? Now that line is used a hell of a lot in Doctor Who when people go inside the TARDIS for the first time. Of course, in Doctor Who, the TARDIS is in fact a police call box, but it's mentioned in the franchise that a TARDIS can be anything really. Now Bridwell replies with, don't be ridiculous, it's smaller on the outside. Now, why people are coming up with that theory is that is something that doctors from the past have said in Doctor Who when people have talked about the TARDIS, almost word for word. There's also a whole bunch of other things in there as well that kind of suggests that he is very similar to Doctor Who, including helping people, etc., the magic and everything. So yeah, if you're a Doctor Who fan, maybe go along and check out Clifford the Big Red Dog and let us know in the comments whether or not you think that Bridwell could in fact be a Time Lord from the Doctor Who series. Now, I should say as well that this film does actually tie in pretty well to the previous Clifford adaptations that we've seen. Of course, Clifford had an animated series, and there was also a film that finished off the animated series. There's lots of little Easter eggs in there for people that have loved the franchise to date. So it is pretty good to see that this is, even though this is a standalone film in a sense, that the director and screenwriters have chosen to do little things like that to give a nod to the previous adaptations as well. Was there anything else you wanted to say about Clifford, or should we jump into some scores?
No, I just think that remembering it was a book series and that a lot of people have grown up with those books, and to see that come to life can be sometimes quite special and magical. And so it might be a different version of the original books. But I think, yeah, when you've grown up on something, it's something that you might want to see because the magic in that coming to life is quite special.
Yeah, and we've had a new generation of people, of course, become involved with Clifford as well, because there's been an animated series that ran for about 4 years as well. And like I said, this ties in quite well with that. One of the actors in this film was one of the voice actors from Clifford. And I guess that leads to a question I wanted to ask too. What did you think of how Clifford actually appeared on the screen? Because I know a lot of people have been wondering about that. How will that animation work to make Clifford look real, or does he not look real?
I think that the CGI isn't something like the Jungle Book or all those more recent, animated characters that come to life on the big screen where they look really real. I didn't feel like Clifford looked like a real dog where you could mistake it as being a real dog. It certainly looks like a character. It certainly looks like a dog made for young people. I don't know. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. It didn't look as bad as some of the CGI that we saw in the early times when they did these movies where there was a crossover between animation and real life. Of course, it's a little bit different to the films that I mentioned before with Sonic and also Tom and Jerry, because of course Tom and Jerry was using the old school animation. It's probably a little bit more similar to Sonic, but there was never a moment when I kind of looked at it and went, oh, that CGI is obvious CGI or anything like that. There was nothing in it where it was like you see sometimes with blurs around the edges, or the fast moving creature suddenly blurs because of the CGI or anything like that. So I think it ended up looking okay, and I guess that brings us to the scores. What are you going to give Clifford the Big Red Dog out of 5?
For a children's movie, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. I think it's a great family film.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was a really, really enjoyable film that just once again reminds filmmakers out there how important it is to have a film that both adults and kids are going to enjoy. In the long run, if an adult goes along to a kids' film, they want to enjoy it as well. So I think that's a very important thing for Hollywood to realise, and this film certainly does that. So that's it for this episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. I'm giving Clifford 3.5. Lee is giving it 4 out of 5. Go along, check it out, see what you think, and we'll be back very, very soon with another episode. But for now, it's bye from me.
And bye from me.
See you later.